Okay. Hello, hello. Good evening, everybody. Whatever you are in the world, if you're in America, if you're in Central, South America, Europe, whatever you are, welcome to the podcast Incremental Change. And tonight, my guest is Jason Root, and we will discuss the law of one. Jason and I connected through a group that is called Law of One, the Raw Material. And so I am very, very interested because he is very much of very, very in tune with this type of information. And I would love to know what he knows about the Law of One and what is going on with our planet and what we can learn from the Law of One. And hello, love. Hi, my friend Kira from Hawaii. Hi, love. And we're also going to talk about how we can heal from the inside out. Jason has healed himself from several diseases. And so we'll talk about that. And I'm also going to share my experience of self healing and how science and spirituality has been intertwined to be able to heal our bodies. So welcome tonight, Jason. Thank you for being
Thank
here
you.
with us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, so we can discuss the law of one and how we got
Sure.
connected with that beautiful group on Facebook. And yes, so you've read the law of one, you said probably more than 5 times.
Yeah, probably 5, 10 times. I forget the number by now, and it's on YouTube, so I've been listening to the audio version of it. I learned better via audio versus reading, so I
Yeah.
prefer that version. But yeah, it was a game changer for me about 5 years ago when I started reading it because I really wasn't into religion at the time. I didn't grow up with a religious background. A little bit, but I really didn't get into it at all. And the law of one was just kind of a scientific way of like opening me up to like a possibility that there was other ways of looking at the world, I guess. And when I first heard about the law of one, I totally dismissed it because it's channeled material. And usually channeled material, it's all over the place. And I'd looked at some of it before that. And I was just like, this is probably bogus. This is probably a bunch of bull. I didn't buy it at first. But then I started listening to what it was about. And it kind of resonated with me in a way that really nothing else had before. And it almost got me into religion, too, because the people who did the law of one, they had a Christian background. So it's based in Christianity. So it was kind of intermingled with Christianity a little bit and had some Eastern flavor to it too. And I'd been into Alan Watts and a lot of the Eastern philosophers. So Eastern religion really resonated with me, and an indigenous religion, Native American, stuff going on in South America. I was fascinated by religion in general, just like the whole concept of it and why people were drawn to it. And I never was. And I was more always science minded. I'm a computer programmer. So that was always my mind, is that, everything has a reason. The Big Bang was just random, and everything since then was scientific. And, anything else is kind of just too out there. If science can't explain it, basically, I didn't care about it.
Yeah.
And so I started realizing, but there was another aspect of things. And the law of one really, really opened me up to that possibility.
That's beautiful. And I am not by any means have not read as much as you have of the law of one. But I find a lot of similarities and what I hold to be truth in my heart. And it to me is very interesting because it is very scientific. And so we have a question here from my beautiful friend Kira, and she's asking, are you speaking about the Guardians Isha's work, the Freedom Teachings?
I've never heard of that before, so I don't think I could answer that. I'm not sure what that is, but what was the name again? How do you spell it?
EASHAS work, the Freedom Teachings.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about that before. No.
And so basically, you're the law of one that you're familiar with is the raw material, right?
Right. Yep.
And I wanted to ask you a question because a couple of days ago, if I'm not mistaken, I read something in regards to, so what is the relationship between Ra and the Jesus, the Christ that we call in Christianity?
Yeah, so the questioner and the law of one, so just to give you a little bit of background, they had someone recording they had someone channeling, so they were put into like a trance state. And then the person that was asking the question, so that was Carla. Then they had Dawn, who was asking the questions to Carla while she was in trance, and then they had Jim McCarty, who was recording all of this while she was, transcribing it. And so as they got into it, they started just asking, okay, well, where did Jesus come from? Where did he, how did he get here? What was he doing here? So they started to ask questions about that. And their explanation is that Jesus is from a higher density and, a different, higher plane than most people. And that he came down here and he kind of, was kind of like the messenger and, so it really aligns with everything Christianity says. It just gave a different perspective of like, what his journey was. And it kind of explained, I think it talks a little bit about where he was during those, 13 lost years that Christianity doesn't account for. So it talks about some of that. It talks about just some really interesting things that, I don't know if if it's accurate or not, but it's really interesting how they talk about him being a fourth density, spirit or being that came down here kind of as a wanderer, star seed, or whatever you want to call it. That he came down and, he started discovering his true nature, his true power that he had. He knew he was different than people because he started being able to do things as a child, and it kind of led into his path that he was on, and how he kind of was here to be a teacher. And so the law of one talks a lot about that. And so yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
sure, yeah, it makes a lot of sense because of what we're going through on the planet with really anchoring the fourth density or fourth dimension that we call it in different type of paths, and also the 5D. So it's very interesting to me. All of this really intertwines. So many of the Eastern traditions and a lot of the scientific ways of seeing really the quantum physics, and because the fourth density, if we talk about that and how Master Jesus, when he came in and spread his teachings on the earth, really it was about unconditional love, about really seeing ourselves in everybody and treating everybody as if we treat ourselves, and compassion and faith, and really that's what we're anchoring right now. We're actually going through the eye of the needle right now as humanity to really start anchoring in the collective, the fourth density. So these are exciting times. It's beautiful because also in quantum physics, the theory says that everything is happening in the now. So the past, the now, and the future is all happening right now.
Right.
So
yeah, it's hard to wrap your mind around that, but that's exactly
super interesting to think about it, because so if everything is happening in the now, that means that Master Jesus is on the earth right now and he's spreading his teachings of love, of unconditional love. And if everything is happening in the now, our ascension and humanity reaching the fourth density and the fifth density has already happened as well, and it's happening in the now. So it's really what we're choosing in this precise moment. That is what really puts us in perspective of how we want to experience as an individual. How do we want our experiences to be? Do we really are we putting all the input and all the light that we hold in our hearts to be able to lift ourselves. And when we lift ourselves, we're lifting humanity. So really, that is the teachings of Master Jesus. And I grew up as a Christian. I grew up as Catholic. And Master Jesus was a really very important role in my childhood. I was a loner, and I also had a lot of trauma as a child. So he was my best friend. Like I would talk to him on a daily basis, and he was my best friend, the only one that I could actually really talk about whatever was going on in my mind. I was
Right.
very curious, and I questioned a lot about the religion all the time, all the time. I would ask my mother questions, and she would all just look at me like, you don't ask those questions. Like, no, 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 no. You just listen to what the priest is saying, and you don't ask questions. You don't ask authority, right? You don't. But as a child, I was very curious, and I'm still like that. And so a lot of things didn't make any sense to me. And when I started on my path of awakening, and when I started doing a lot of self-discovery, I understood really much deeper than what religion was able to really teach me.
That's beautiful. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's beautiful. So how long ago did you start teaching or start learning the raw material, the law of one?
I started 5 years ago. That's when I really started really getting into it, and like I said, it's really complicated to understand. So it's like one of those things that it takes so many times to go through it until like it starts clicking, and then they start mentioning things like, astrology and the Kabbalah and all of these things, like how they're divination tools and different ways to understand like the archetypical framework of how the world works. And it all kind of ties into the evolution of our planet that's happening right now. And astrology, for instance, like December 21st coming up, the grand junction where
Yeah,
Jupiter and Saturn, the two biggest planets in the universe, when or the solar system, that they're aligning and they're going to be as close as they've ever been. And that brings in a different cosmic energy. It brings in a different type of energy. And they talk about these things in the law of one, how critical they are in our evolution, and how we can manifest things differently in our own lives. And not even collectively. I mean, all manifestation collectively starts individually. And
yes,
the law of one really preaches that. They talk about foundational things like how to balance your energies. And they call the energy centers the chakras.
yep,
The vice versa. They say that's what when you balance that yourself, you come into more of alignment with your true nature, your higher self. And like you said about the time, our higher self exists in I think the raw material says like the sixth density. And we have another self, a version of ourself that's the future self. It could even be raw. In my opinion, it's kind of raw is probably us in the future. And kind of communicating backwards, if you will, like to talk to us on this timeline, because right now we're in this timeline, but kind of time is different in the higher densities. So however that works, I'm not sure. But yeah, they talk about all of this stuff that's going on. And the same way religion talks about that. And how Noah, the story of Noah and the ark.
yep,
And how the floods came and they started a new civilization. Well, obviously that means something. It
sure.
means something. And how civilizations must have come and gone on the planet. We certainly, I think most people, the common prevailing idea is that we're the first civilization. And humans right now are just the product of evolution from the very dawn of civilization. Well, that may not be the case. Graham Hancock
Mhm.
done a lot of good work and research and kind of proven that there's other civilizations before us that have come and gone. And what are the reasons for that? And I think it is our relationship with the rest of this planetary body that we deal with. The more we come in harmony with it, And they talk about the law of one talks about first, second, and third density, and we're in humans are third density, and plants and animals are second, and then the elements fire, earth, air, water. You know, that natural evolution of every planet goes through that. So now we're at this stage where we're transitioning into whatever the next stage is, and whatever we're transitioning to it. And you can see it everywhere. It's, the dawning of the age of Aquarius, and it's coming, and we're part of that. And the law of one, speaks to all of that. And I think that it's awesome to see that coming in real life and happening. And they say that just like in the Bible, they talk about the shadow and the valley of death, and I shall fear no evil. That's going on right now. There's a lot of that, a lot of evil and bad stuff going on right now around us. And I think the more we can maintain our heart space and kind of maintain our into the fourth chakra, kind of staying in the heart, like you were talking about, that brings us more into alignment with the earth and the people around us and the plants and animals around us, and the water and the air that are so important. And I think that's why people are getting more into water protecting and protecting the water, protecting the land, protecting the soil, because agriculture is the soil. The microbes in the soil, they're all part of us. They're in our gut, they're in the soil. They have to do with the plant and animal health, and obviously the plant and animal health have to do with human health. So there's that cyclical relationship that's happening, and that is part of who we are as humans and our culture. And I think the more we're in alignment with that, the more we move into that space where we kind of see everything is connected and us as an intricate part of that. And the law of one just explains that beautifully in a kind of esoteric, mysterious way. But if you really listen to what they say in the material, it's beautiful material. And just like religious texts are beautiful, and I think everybody resonates with different things at different in their life. And the law of one is just another one of those tools that you can use to kind of come into your own awareness. And they talk about meditation being huge, and obviously that's curiosity. So yeah, meditation and stuff like that, and obviously that's huge in Eastern religion, and such an intricate part of what they teach in the law of one. How critical meditation is to our own evolution, to kind of set aside our selfish nature and our our conditioned patterns, and kind of come into alignment with our higher self, and kind of manifesting our highest purpose here on earth. So
yes, absolutely. And I love that you were mentioning
I think my daughter wants to say hi, so I'm just going to bring her on for a second.
Absolutely.
She's curious of what I'm doing. This is Presley.
Hi, nice to meet you, Presley.
By the way,
Welcome.
this is my greatest teacher right here.
Oh yes,
Absolutely. I've learned so much more from her than any book, than any material that I could read. I mean, she is awesome.
the crystal children of the earth.
Oh,
welcome to the podcast. Her eyes are beautiful.
Hey, thank you.
That's beautiful.
Oh, sweetie, just say hi, and we're gonna keep talking. But you can stand over there, okay?
And yes, so I wanted to mention something, and in regards to what you were saying about how possibly Master Jesus was for density, and about Ra, and how this is how I see it. This is how I hold the truth in my heart. That basically, because once again, in the quantum field, there is an infinite amount of versions of ourselves. So the higher self, and also the deities or the gods or the ascended masters, the higher beings that we want to call, whatever we identify ourselves with. A lot of people identify themselves with the Buddha, with Krishna, Ganesh, Shiva, all the deities in the Hindu tradition. Christianity, we're we identify ourselves with Jesus and the saints and Mother Mary, and so really this higher beings, this ascended masters, are aspects of ourselves. So basically, it's interesting because we're all one, and that's why the law of one is fascinating to me, because we're all one. It's almost like the prime creator is this is how I see it, is this beautiful bright light of the most beautiful colors that you've ever even imagined in your life. And then from this bright life is all of this part of the creation in different spectrums of light, where all the ascended masters, all the deities and gods and saints and Buddhist monks, and down and down and down to us. So it's really seeing ourselves in a mirror, and that's the beauty of it. That's how life is so miraculous and so beautiful to experience. Yeah, I love it. I love how we can combine the science with spirituality. And actually, Dr. Joe Dispenza says the science is the language of mysticism.
I like that. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
I love the science. I love to be able to actually um, do some research when it comes to science, and really say this makes total sense for me, what I hold to be truth, what life is about, and what we're discovering every moment. So yeah, it's so beautiful. And so if you want to share a little bit about your journey of self healing.
Sure. Yeah. So I kind of think that the my journey has like started. Well, at least I'll give you a little background about the medical issues that I've had and kind of how that transitioned
Yeah.
into me getting into all this. So 20 years ago, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which
Hmm.
is an autoimmune disorder where your body starts to reject your large intestine. So I was,
Yeah.
20 years ago, so I was 25 at the time, and I'd been healthy up until then, like completely healthy, but I knew I was treating my body bad. I ate fast food all the time, and I knew that I probably couldn't do that forever. But at the time, I didn't really think it affected me. And when I started having medical issues, the doctors were telling me, "Well, diet doesn't matter. It's not. You're genetically predisposed." So they tested my
Mm.
genetics, and I had this genetic marker that said that was probably my diagnosis was the ulcerative colitis, and why my gastrointestinal system wasn't working as it should. And I kind of just bought that, and I was getting on a bunch of medications, pain relievers, anti-kidney rejection medicines, Humira injections, so all sorts of different things. And um, eventually, my large intestine started to fall apart inside of my body, and they said, "Well, we have to take it out, or you're going to die." So
Yeah.
they ended up taking my large intestines out, and I was like, "Well, don't I need that for something? Don't I need to, have my large intestines?" And they're like, "Well, we can do a surgery where you hook your small intestines back up where your large intestines was, and it'll just affect, how you go and how many times you go a day." And I was like, "Well, if it's going to keep me alive, I'm going to do it." So
Yeah.
that's what I did. So I did the surgery, and I was better after that. I didn't have any more of the issues, which was an incredible amount of pain and bleeding and just
Yeah.
fatigue. I couldn't move. I was pretty rough shape. I went from like 180 pounds to like 90 pounds. Like I
Mm.
was skin and bones. I don't even, I didn't eat in the hospital for 5 months because my body couldn't process anything. So they had me on like what's called a PICC line, and they injected. No, go ahead. Sorry. So yeah, they had me on like it wasn't a feeding tube, but it was just like injecting minerals because my body couldn't process the food. So it was just injecting minerals to keep me alive. And that was a weird time for me because not eating for 4 or 5 months, it was just
Yeah.
mentally that messes with you. And I was just
Totally.
like, man, I'm going to die. I'm never going to be the same. And man, while I was in the hospital, I started to realize I wasn't religious, but then when you're faced with your own mortality, you start to wonder, what's after this, because I might not be here very much longer. So I came to the realization of all that in the hospital. I'm like, I really need to come to terms with the fact that I haven't been religious up until now. And, what does this mean? Should I start to pray? I'd never prayed before. And so I did. I started praying and I started, asking those questions like, is there a creator out there? Please keep me alive. And if you do, like, uh, you know, maybe I'll have a purpose for you. Let me live because I really wanted to live, and so I did. I started getting kind of religious in the hospital because what are your other options when you're faced with your mortality is to start wondering about the afterlife and so that really opened me. That experience really pried me open from my scientific mind to like the metaphysical side of things um, so after that, after the whole hospital experience, I got out, and of course, I totally forgot that whole thing that happened, and I was just like, "Yeah, I'm back to normal." I had the surgery, I was doing good, I felt great, I had no symptoms, and except for I started, I had a few symptoms, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it was. So I just figured everything was back to normal. So I totally forgot about like that semi-religious experience and that whole wanting to connect. And I started living my life the same way again for a long time. And for like the next 10 years after that, I was doing my own thing and kind of getting back to normal routine. Horrible diet again. Because the doctors were telling
Mm,
me the diet wasn't a factor, so I was
mm,
listening and I was just taking the drugs. And by then, I had become severely addicted to painkillers like hydrocodone because in the
mm,
hospital they had me on morphine, they had me on all these Dilaudid, all these opioids. And once I had that, man, I was just like, and after I got out, I still had, I had pain still a little bit. So the doctors were just prescribing me this stuff. And so I was pretty much getting any prescription I wanted because the doctors at the time are much more liberal with the opiate
yeah,
prescriptions. And so I was taking them, I was taking them like candy. I was taking a bunch every day and for a long time. And after a while, about 10 years later, I was taking those off and on, but for 10 years, I was pretty good. But when I turned about 35, I came into another autoimmune disorder called ankylosing spondylitis, which is a form of
mm,
arthritis. So my joints started to fall apart, and my feet, my ankles, my knees, my shoulders, all my joints were inflamed, swollen. I could barely walk. So, and the doctors again were just genetic bad luck, man. You just, you have one autoimmune disease, you're susceptible to all of them, and you just have your genetics are bad. And so they kept reinforcing that idea over and over in my head, and I was at that time, and then they started prescribing the same medications they did for the ulcerative colitis. And that's when something clicked in my brain. And I realized that, man, there's something else here. There's something else that the doctors aren't telling me or they don't know about or they're missing. And I started like doing everybody else. I started looking online. And before I didn't know anything about the human body except for what the large intestines did. All the rest of my body parts, my, endocrine system, my neurologic system, immune system. Like I really wasn't too, I wasn't up to speed on all of the medical stuff concerning that stuff. And because I just assumed the doctors had it handled and I was a computer programmer. So technology was my thing. And that's kind of my area of study. So I was like, I'm going to let the doctors worry about that. I'll worry about myself. And I realized that I couldn't do that anymore. I had to take responsibility for myself and my own body, and that the doctors were there to help, of course, but I needed to be educated about what is going on inside me because I need to understand it. And that's kind of what led me into the path of trying to just learn about everything I could about the human body. So I started to deviate away from technology and push it away and use it instead of learning how to, because I've been a computer programmer for 20 plus years. And so I started to do less of that and worrying about staying up to speed on technology. And I started learning about the body technology. I started realizing that computers were boring because I knew everything about computers. I know how they function. They do exactly what they tell you. Program them, they do something. You have data input, you have something output. That's boring. The human body is much more interesting because it's dynamic. Everybody has different genetics, different DNA. MicroRNA can alter that, and it's changeable, it's adaptable, it's malleable, and it's completely, you know, nothing like, it's like a computer in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways it's like a dynamic computer because it evolves. Your body evolves, your mind evolves, your spirit evolves, and the mind, body, spirit are just so intricately intertwined together, and they're not static. They're not, you know, you can't just, you know, run a program on that and get it to work. And I think that's what the medical models today want you to believe, that, okay, well, if you have this condition, you take this and this drug and you're good, because that will change your physiology to mitigate the symptoms. So we've been trapped in that system, that medical system. And I started putting all the pieces together. I'm like, this is messed up. We're just treating the symptoms here. I was like, because I kept asking the doctors this question. I was like, okay, I'm treating the pain, you're treating the swelling, you're giving me a biologic or a TNF blocker, which is just giving me artificial antibodies in my body to help tamper down the immune response. And I was like, well, why is my immune response so bad to begin with? These autoimmune disorders obviously start somewhere, and they're like, again, genetics. And that's the primary idea that is behind most diseases today, is they just tell you it's genetics and they treat the symptoms because that's what doctors are trained to. It's not like it's a bad thing.
Right.
Of course, you want to treat the
Absolutely.
symptoms and mitigate those. But man, we're starting to understand, and all the new research is telling you that you need to be proactive to start to, you know, catch the symptoms before they start, so they don't manifest themselves. And so that's the new philosophy that's coming into awareness, is that our mind and body, you don't take care of those, they're going to degrade, and you're going to manifest, you know, physical or mental symptoms or both. And to me,
Absolutely.
you know, it starts with well, it's all one thing. The mind, body, spirit's
Yeah.
all one thing. So it's like you can't just address the body and, like, you know, think, oh, I don't have to worry about, you know, the mental side, or, you know, taking care of my mental health or spiritual health. You know, it all intertwines together. And, you know, that's what I started to realize once I started getting into this stuff deeper and deeper, and that we have that intricate piece of ourselves that kind of drives our awareness and how we operate in the world, and how we interact with each other in the world, and how we interact with the world itself. And all of that's been part of my healing, is not only healing myself, but healing my relationship with other selves out there. And that, again, that's what the law of one talks about, the other self. And it's like,
Absolutely.
definition of self, what does self mean? Does it mean just me, at Jason and Astrid, or does it mean me, you, and everything around us, the animals, the plants, the other humans, the, you know, everything together? And you start to realize that you're not independent of all of that. You're not independent of the soil microbes, because of the microbes aren't in the soil making healthy plants, then the microbes don't end up, you know, producing plants that have like the amino acids that we need. And they don't get into our gut, and if we don't have microbes in our gut, they don't do redox signaling appropriately, which is how our cells repair themselves in tight junctions, which are the layer between our immune system and the toxins that are in our system. And so I started to put all this together, and I'm like, wow, I need to understand all of this. And that's kind of been my mission the past 5 years, is like, I'm going to understand this, you know, just as well as I understand computers, because not out because I really wanted to, because I have to. If I want to stay alive, I'm going to have to understand how all this stuff works and ties in together.
Yep, absolutely. I love that. I love that you're a computer programmer, because um, I for what I've been learning lately. So in the new research in the neuroscience and epigenetics, which is so fascinating, I am so passionate about it, because so
Too.
basically when you went through your journey at the beginning with the ulcerative colitis, and they told you that it's an autoimmune disorder, that basically your genes are bad, your genes are bad, this is what you have, this is what you have to take, you have no other option, you have to go through surgery. And so the new research with epigenetics is saying that actually the environment is what is signaling the gene. So therefore, you're the one that actually can change your genetic code by by putting different signals in your body from your environment. So what is really the biggest cause of disease? Stress. Top is really the top. So if we continue living the life that we live under very stressful situations and we're in survival mode, then our body doesn't have the energy for growth and repair. So then our genes start degenerating, and that's when we become ill of whatever illnesses that we're suffering from. So with the new research, genetically we can alter this so-called autoimmune diseases if we lower our levels of stress. And one of the main things is meditation right there. So
Right.
I love that. I love that because back in the day, we were disempowered, completely disempowered, and only believing that the only way out of diseases or addressing our symptoms or conditions was to get a prescription from a doctor. So
Yeah.
nowadays, we know that actually we have the power, and if we really start engaging and lowering our stress levels, and I've been talking about this for I don't know years probably, but meditation, and actually you start decompressing your nervous system and start meditating, and if you actually commit yourself to start maybe 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day for a week, try it out. And then you begin to see the changes. It's been proven by the new research that 4 days, 4 days of meditation alone can boost your immune system. It boosts your IgA levels, which is the IgA is what we have in our mucous membranes. That is one of the first that are going to come out and attack any invaders, any viruses, bacteria, anything that wants to enter your bloodstream. In the mucous membranes, that it's the IgA is right there. So it's actually the natural flu shot. So you can boost 50% level of the IgA by meditation alone. So can you imagine what you can do if you consistently, the name of my podcast is Incremental Change, like I mentioned to you before. If you can actually consistently start working on your nervous system 5 minutes a day for 1 week, just try it out. Then by the end of the week, you're gonna notice and you're gonna, okay, 5 minutes, it's really not a big deal. I can do 10 now. And so that's how you really set a good foundation to start noticing what you're worthy of doing incremental change and really make the necessary changes in your life. And of course, diet, same thing. Well, perhaps start drinking a little more water and set your intention. Maybe 4 more ounces of water a day for 1 week, and then see the changes in your life. So it's about self-empowering. Nowadays, we have all of these tools, all of this new research, and we just have to be willing to receive all this information and start acting on it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful. I love that. I don't know if you've heard the Human Genome Project, but in
Yeah.
the mid 90s, they started the Human Genome Project to map out the human genome. And it ended in like the early 2000s. And they were only able to find like 1.5% of our DNA actually encodes for a protein, which means there's other 98.5%. Oh, that's just junk DNA. That doesn't do anything. It's like, come on now,
Right.
the creation doesn't work like that. There's always a purpose for something. And just because science doesn't explain it doesn't mean it. Just because you've labeled it junk DNA doesn't
Right.
mean it doesn't do anything. And we're still figuring out what that other 98.5% is. And it's like
And
that's
I think we
epigenetics.
know.
That's right.
I
I think
think
most
we
people are
know
starting to
already.
figure it
Yeah.
out, but it's still. I mean, we're still figuring out how our physiology works. We
Sure.
still don't know. I just got done with an anatomy and physiology course online for this year because I was doing it as a prereq for a master's program, and I was looking through that book and I'm like, all of this stuff is outdated. This is the book that nurses and doctors
Very.
intro class. And I was
Yeah,
like, this is awful. I mean, it's great to give a basic understanding of everything, but it doesn't address half the stuff that's coming out. And it makes sense because, that's the standard method of understand. That's the standard knowledge that we have now, but we're always like 20, 30 years behind, it seems, because the
absolutely.
they have to have this scientific method tested over and over again. And that's just not reality. We're finding new stuff every single day about epigenetics, about the microbiome, and how important the microbiome and epigenetics are to our health. And most people are like, well, that's just new age stuff. That doesn't matter. It's bull crap. It's just woo woo science. Like, you know, it's not. It's not. And there's studies behind it, but you have to really dig, and you have to really know who to listen to. And really, it comes with having an understanding yourself of the standard way that people think about medicine, and what medicine actually is, and how the body functions. And if you don't have that basic understanding of the different parts of your body and how they function, how the neurochemical system works, and the neurological system, the GI system, and the endocrine system, and all these, the urinary reproductive system, all these systems work together. And people talk about, oh, well, I'm taking care of my immune system, and they think it's some other system that's separate from the body. It's like, no, the immune system is the body. The body,
Right.
it has immune function. And when one part stops working, it isn't just because that one, it could be a symptom of something going on somewhere else in your body. If you have thyroid issues or whatever, if you or iron issues, I guess is a good example, because a lot of people say, well, I have anemia. And so the common way that you treat anemia in the medical industry today is, oh, you have anemia, you lack iron, we're going to give you more iron, we're going to give you iron pills. But it's like, okay, but why are you anemic? Is
Right.
it a lack of iron, or is it the way your body is metabolizing the iron that isn't allowing your blood cells to release the iron that it already has back into the circulation? And so they're finding out that you really can't be anemic. We need 25 milligrams of iron every day, and 24 of those milligrams are already stored in our current red blood cells. So you really only need a minuscule amount of iron, which is everywhere.
Sure.
If you eat something, you're going to get a little bit of iron. And so they're realizing that process is totally wrong, and the way we think about iron is totally wrong. And if you're anemic, it's because it isn't being transported properly in the blood. And I've looked into like ferritin and transferrin, which are the enzymes that help the iron transfer out of the blood and get transported into the tissues and get recycled every day. And if that process breaks down, you're going to become anemic, and the doctors are going to be like, well, here's some iron, and that may help you temporarily. But if you're not addressing the reasons why you're getting anemic to begin with, then you're just going to be misdiagnosed, and you're going to be reactionary over and over again. And it's just going to another one
Yes.
of the reasons why the way that we look at health today really has to change and evolve, and
Oh,
with
yeah.
the up to date information. And you can only understand that if you understand the whole big picture. And
Yes.
the way I think when I try to describe this to people and trying to get people to look at the deeper picture is, okay, where did our medical models start? Where did they start? Where did they begin? Who started them? Who came up with them? How have they evolved over time? Most people have no idea. They,
Hmm.
oh, we're advanced tech, medically, and we have all these great technologies for surgery, for drugs, and they think, well, that's just a manifestation of how things are gone, and that's just the optimal way of doing things. And unless you understand the dynamics about why things happened in like the mid 1800s, where you had two doctors that were kind of arguing back and forth about how to treat patients, and you had Louis Pasteur and
Hmm.
Champ, and you come up with germ theory and terrain theory.
Right.
And so if you start looking into germ theory and terrain theory, you start to realize that there's really two different ways of looking at health. There's sterilize the patient, or create create the terrain in the patient itself, so you don't get affected by the microbes, by the pathogens that come in your body. And if you prepare your body enough, you're not going to be affected by that stuff. And how that evolved over time into like the American Medical Association in like the late 1900s. They started to run out of funding, and but they were still going on Louis Pasteur's model, and the Rockefellers at the time, you know, conspiracy action for you conspiracy theorists out there, but the Rockefellers really took over the AMA. And what were the Rockefellers into? Oil. And so you have oil based everything, and the pharmaceutical industry is oil based. It's all driven off of that a fossil fuel extraction, and so they wanted to continue that. So they probably knew that maybe Antoine Béchamp's theory of terrain, that terrain was more important than sterilization. But there's no money in that. There's no money in people being able to self-treat themselves. And so you see that playing out from the 1900s all the way, 2020, 120 years later, how that's all evolved over time, and it's all based on money. There's no money in treating people and perpetually treating people, and there's no money in telling people that food is your medicine, like Hippocrates said so many hundreds of years ago.
Yes, absolutely. And once again, going back to do you hear like a little echo? A little bit of an echo. Um, Going back to what we were talking earlier about the law of one, and how interesting is that everything starts combining the science and the spirituality, because then we come to find out, so the energy centers, how they're mentioned in the law of one, and that's how I have been studying with my mentor. Energy centers, that every energy center is part of this mechanism of our lower chakra, that is called in other traditions, is our first energy center that secretes, is like a mini brain that secretes all these chemical reactions. And so we keep going. Every single center has this organs, this glands, and it's got to be all in perfect harmony to be able to have the physical and also the spiritual harmony, the centropy, to be able to create this magnetic field that, as we commune with the microbes and all the bacteria in our gut and all the bacteria in our skin, all this microbiome that we're part of, is the same thing that we have to commune with our magnetic field. So it's all a combination of everything, and creating the harmony, creating the coherence with all our energy centers, and especially with the supercomputer. And you're an expert on computers, so it is so fascinating, because when we're talking about computers, we program computers, and it is the same thing that has been happening since the beginning of the medical system and the educational system, religious systems. We have been programmed. And the programs that we have been associated with, most of them are disempowering. Most of them are disempowering, self-sabotage, and self-limiting beliefs. So really, because it has been favored a few, in leaving us the rest of humanity with just believing that we don't have the power to change things, that we don't have the power to change our present reality. Whatever it is that we're facing, if we're facing economic issues, if we're facing physical issues, emotional issues, no, we have the power. The power is held here in our hearts, and it extends 5 meters around into the magnetic field, just like our planet has a huge magnetic field. So that is the biggest power right here. And really, when you come to an understanding that, yes, it's beautiful that we have all this technology, and I am absolutely amazed by all the new discoveries that we're making in regards to new technology, to energy. And but we have to be in harmony with that as well, because we can't think that that as humanity, we can only rely on technology because the best technology that we have is nature. So if we don't combine everything and we're not in harmony with our planet, with nature, then we're completely lacking. And that's what happened in the Atlantis. The Atlantis came to the civilization came to an end because they rely only on technology. And then what happened? It was a very patriarchal type of society, so there was no balance. And so then what is happening right now in our planet. But I think, and I really believe it in my heart, that so many of us are waking up to the realization that when we create harmony within ourselves, harmony with our fellow human beings and with our planet, with the universe, that is really where we hold the future for humanity. And
Yeah,
that's where
that's
it's at.
beautiful. That's so beautiful. I love how you said that. That's just awesome. That that just the way you put it. It's to me. I think that there's a balance. There's such a delicate balance between what's going on out in the world and what's going on with
Yeah.
ourselves. And it's almost like we have such a beautiful relationship with everything that goes on around us, um, but we manifest that by changing ourselves. We a lot of it's so tempting to just want to point fingers and be like
Hmm.
elites that are a problem, or it's government, or it's Trump, or it's all these things that are holding me back. But really, it's not that. It's not. It starts with us. Like if
Yes.
we change ourselves, the world around us doesn't change. And I think the more we come into alignment with that understanding, to understand that we have to have self responsibility.
Yes.
Like if there's no self responsibility, the words don't mean anything, because our lives are our message, and and that's how we manifest the heart. It's not, you don't manifest the heart by what you say or what comes out of your mouth, what you write down. You do it by being a hug dealer. You know what I mean?
I love
You
that.
go out and you go to somebody that is hurting, and whether it's physical closeness and being close to them, it's where they can feel your heart energy close to them and feel that
Yes.
loving energy. Or if it's just the way you treat them, if you are in a situation where you could get angry at somebody, but instead of getting angry, you give them a hug and realize that if they're treating you in a way that's making you angry, it's because something in their life isn't good, or they need help. And so having that compassion for people when they do you wrong, is so tough. Like, we deal with that every day. It's easy to get out of that heart space and be like, fuck you, like, like, yeah, I'm so angry.
Right.
um the more we can avoid being selfish like that, and coming into that space where we're just selfless, and that's what Jesus taught. This whole thing
Yes.
taught in Christianity is being selfless. And it's such a hard path to be selfless like that. And because we're constantly, in balance with, playing with, the different things that make us not selfless, that make us selfish and make us self-centered. And so again, that ties back into the responsibility we have to our families, to our communities, to the people around us. And and, and to me, that spans whether or not we have a spiritual awareness, whatever. It embraces everybody regardless of what their awareness is. And before, I used to get angry when I wanted to talk to people about some of these deeper concepts about what I was learning and stuff. And if they weren't resonating with me, I'd be like, oh, you just don't know, you just need to catch up. And it's like, no, it's because I need to hug you more. I need to be more where your space is at. I need to address you where you're coming from, because you don't know where I'm coming from and I don't know where you're coming from. So let's find our commonality, and let's align with that. And what's our commonality? It's like we all want good food, good water, good company, love, all these things that are just basic human needs. And
Yeah.
all want to be happy in the end. And to me, that's key. That's the key, because people resonate with that, and people don't always resonate with a word or a message, even if it's the most profound words in the world, unless you're feeling it yourself. and you see that in the other person, and the other person's coming at you with no agenda, with no propaganda, like I'm gonna, mentally mess with this person so they'll have a higher state of awareness, or they'll believe what I believe. And it's so hard to get out of that, because even if you have like the best intentions and best beliefs, if you try to manipulate somebody else, who knows what's going to happen? It's like the law of one even talks about this, and they talk about free will,
Yeah,
and how important free will is, and giving people that free will, and that's just giving them the space to grow as they want to grow, or come to whatever understandings they want to come to. and and you just do you. You know what I mean? Like you go about your life, and you stop being concerned with what other people are thinking about you or what your path is, and just be your natural self, and just integrate with the world in that way. And I think that's the best thing that you can do for everybody around you, is just be yourself, and be the best version of yourself that you can be.
that's beautiful. I love that. And I talk to my daughter about this all the time because really that's holding the essence of being authentic.
Right.
You don't have to even speak any words. If you're just being authentic, people can actually feel it before you even say anything. Just hold a space for people, for whatever they're going through. And what I really have been focusing in the last year and a half or so, that is really one of the challenges that we have in life, is judging. And we as human beings, we're very judgmental, and we want people to accept our theories, our philosophies, as their own. And everybody really holds their truth of what their individual experience is. And we don't have to agree, but we can respect each other for whatever we think, and we can come to an understanding that we're all human, and that we're really doing the best we can, especially this year. So many of us are going through so much. And not only with what's been happening on the planet, but energetically wise, it has been really, really tremendous for a lot of people. And holding that space for people and give them the opportunity just to be themselves. And if they choose whatever it is that they choose to do, that is okay. And we don't always have to be on the same path. Right? I mean, it's and everything, at the end of the day, everything leads to the same direction, because like you mentioned, we as human beings, we have basic needs, and really that is what we hold important as species to be able to survive. But really, to be able to thrive, I feel like right now, especially on the planet, um, really having compassion for and understanding for whatever other people are going through. And that's okay. We don't have to agree with everything. Acceptance. Right now, for the last 3 weeks, I've been working on acceptance. I don't have to like what's going on the planet. I don't have to agree with it. But when we begin to accept it, then changes can happen rather quickly. And so we're not judging anymore. And like you mentioned earlier, the pointing of the finger. That is such an interesting thing to do, because then we're not holding ourselves accountable. So what are we doing? How are we contributing, right? Be the change you want to be, you want to see in the world. Be the change. Start with yourself. And then you can start telling other people what to do, or the should. That word is so 3D, so third dimensional. You should be doing this and pointing the finger. No, we have options, and with our free will, we get to choose these options. And at the end of the day, we end up choosing whatever. If we're past the path we're choosing is going to be a little bit easier. Perhaps it doesn't have too many rocks and too many inclines. Or if we choose, an easier path of surrender and harmony and acceptance and authenticity. And we're heading to a much better world than what we've been experiencing this year. And with the alignments of the planet on December 21st, that's going to be very interesting to experience.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that's going to impact and everything that's going on, and everything that's going to transpire in the future. And we're seeing this shift already. It's like it's happening, but it's it's
Yeah,
slow, and people want to speed it up, but it's like just let's just
yeah,
things get worse before they get better. They get worse before they get better. It's just a matter of how you deal with it and how you
yeah,
stay focused on your own stuff and making you the best version of you that you can be.
yeah,
And that's the greatest gift you can give to anybody, is being your, like you said, authentic self. I think
yeah,
Alan Watts had a great quote on authenticity. He's like, you can't be authentic. There's nothing you can do to be authentic. It's impossible, because
hmm,
the very act of trying to do something means you're inauthentic. So
right,
where does authenticity come from? It comes from somewhere else than me trying to manipulate what's going on around me. It's just
right,
letting it flow through you in a way, and just being who you are, and not trying to control so much. So like you said, surrender is a big one, and
big one.
that's what meditation, and that's what Alan Watts talks about. The importance of meditation is really just coming into more into an alignment with that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So 1 hour went by so quickly talking
I
about
know.
all this beautiful ways of helping each other and to provide with more choices for people. Perhaps somebody is going through tremendous changes and emotional um, disturbances, and knowing that we're all on the same journey, and that so many of us have a lot of resources, and that you perhaps can get a hold of us and we can help each other. And that's why we're here. And so I really appreciate you coming and join us today, Jason. Thank you so much. And absolutely. So beautiful that you discovered the path through trying to really understand what was happening in your body. Yeah,
Yeah,
all
to
this.
me, it's like it's the pathless path. It's
Yeah,
like what's my meditation teacher is releasing, awakentheworld.com. Um, they release a bunch of YouTube videos, and if you want to post that, on the show notes or whatever, if you do that,
sure.
I
Yeah,
think that's a great resource for people to really just come into understanding why meditation is important, and
yeah,
how it can help you people deal with everything that's going on individually.
yeah,
It knows that meditation's good. They understand that it helps you, um, you know, cope with different things in your life that are going on. Like you talk about the stress. It's especially right now. It's like taking an
yeah,
hour, or even like you said, 5 minutes, starting with 5 minutes a day, and just complete silence, just following your breath. And it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful to just detach from screens and from technology, because we're all so immersed in it. We want to be
yes,
online, we want to be socially interacting. Well, there's a cost with that. There's a cost with being in front of a screen all day or on your phone all day. It wears on you after time. And I can speak to that personally, because after being a programmer for so long, I've been behind a
right.
computer for the past 20 years, and I saw that's why I'm looking to transition into like the healthcare field, and maybe into a different career where I don't have to be behind a computer all day long, and I can
Yeah,
interact with people. And so I think it's really reevaluating where you are in life, regardless of how old you are or what your past experience is. Just really trying to find that true awareness, and that comes with letting go and just figuring out who we are as individuals. And I think that's the pathless path is something I really like. The phrase I really like, because it's not like I'm looking at a path on paper and be like, okay, here's what I do, now it's what I do next, and this is on my list, and like checking them off. It's like throwing the list out the window and being like, I'm going to sit in quiet and see what comes through. I'm
yeah,
going to see where it leads me. And I've tried to dictate my path before, and it's never ended well for me. So now I'm just kind of letting go and seeing what comes. And I think that there's something that's beautiful in that, and that's what they talk about in the Tao Te Ching. You know, kind of letting go, and a lot of Eastern philosophy they talk about wu wei wu, and that's like effort without effort, the effortless effort, and I think that's where meditation brings you. And so I think that's something that is something beautiful that we can all embrace, and I think that's going to be more important as we go along these
Yes.
everybody and seeing where that fits in and taking that quiet time and embracing our paths in our own way.
Yes, absolutely. Boosting our immune system and
Yeah,
lengthening the telomeres, which are
yeah,
associated with aging and cancer production. So,
yeah,
are those little like filaments, like hair-like, that are at the end of the chromosomes. So, when you meditate, the research is right there. It's been proven that you can lengthen your lifespan, you
yeah,
can boost your immune system, you can heal many conditions. A lot of people are having instantaneous healings, and this is the medicine of the future. The meditation, the sound, the coherence, that we can self-empower our beings by just learning this new science. So it's beautiful. Thank you so much, Jason, for being here
thank
with us.
you.
I appreciate all your input and all your knowledge about different subjects, and the hour went by so quickly.
Yeah, I
I
did.
really appreciate everybody that joined us tonight, and just sending all my love and blessings to everybody. And we'll see you next time. Have a good evening.